One of the most important divine laws to understand on the path towards awakening is the law of ascent and descent. This law describes that you can only truly rise into higher levels of being and awakening as deep as you're willing and able to go into the shadow within yourself, revealing and transmuting all trauma, wounding, and suppressed feelings from your childhood and over lifetimes. The New Age and oversimplified pop spiritual teachings have conveyed the false idea that the awakening process is a continuing linear road up towards more love and light, and if you're down in the pit of so-called negative emotions and experiences, you're just not that awake or have not ascended into 5D yet. Too bad for you. But that idea is a corruption of the truth. The path towards awakening spirals up, down, in, out, back and forth, expanding on all levels and bringing up everything. Anything that is asleep within us, meaning unconscious, will be put under the spotlight of truth. Throughout my life, I've noticed that the deeper and lower I fell into the shadow of my being, all the way to the most toxic mud of internalized shame and grief with suicidal thought injections, and was able to work through and transmute the suffering, emerging wounds and trauma, the higher I was able to rise, the descent and ascent at the same time. I also realized how little control I, who I think I am, actually had over this process. The suffering also initiated a deep longing within me to surrender to the divine, the only true source of unconditional joy and love, the most important relationship. But then I encountered another paradox. The more sincerely I aspired to the divine, bringing forth my true self, engaging in the necessary inner psychological and spiritual work towards soul individuation and soul embodiment, the more my lower nature resisted and the more the hostile forces interfered. The battle is within. I then understood why Sri Aurobindo said, "No one can reach heaven who has not passed through hell." So keep this in mind when you're down and under, when you feel lost, alone in the pit of suffering. It is part of the process, and it doesn't mean that you're less awake than someone who seemingly is always happy with a smiley face, which could be most often just an unconscious mask to cover up internalized shame and trauma out of fear to embrace the descent, to clear the pathway for the ascent. Also know that there are forces who do not wish for you to awaken to your true nature, and they will use any trickery, tagging into any trauma and shadow aspects you have within you, and any temptation targeting the specific weaknesses of your lower nature and ego as entry points to keep you imprisoned out of your own making. But they are your teachers, for they highlight what you need to heal and transmute. They test your sincerity and integrity. Remember, all there is are lessons, tests, and initiations. The traps are getting stuck in blame and victim consciousness, self-pity, or self-importance, along with entitlement and laziness, as if anyone owes you anything. Nothing is free in the entire universe, and you need to pay with yourself, as Gurdjieff said. Many don't pass the tests and threshold. Their soul may need another few lifetimes until it is ripe and conscious enough to answer the call without spiritually bypassing. I'm not implying that it is easy. I was on the brink of giving up many times, of ending this life, or just giving in to my lower nature cravings like Cypher in The Matrix, who sold his soul to Agent Smith and betrayed Neo. The more you progress, the narrower the path gets, and any misstep results in a deeper fall than before. But if you stay with it and transmute it, you will be able to rise higher than ever before. As the light and the divine shined a light into the darkest corners of my psyche, bringing up all that needs to rise up, be faced and transmuted, the less I was able to lie to myself, blame others, engage in spiritual bypassing, or rationalize it all away. But the more I took responsibility for everything in my life, and the more freedom I experienced, being more present and engaged in life. Still, I would never claim to be fully awake in the true meaning of the word. I still experience cycles of descent into the shadows of my being, and have my days. Divine grace taught me enough humility over the years when I overestimated myself to know that there's still more to explore, uncover, heal, and transmute, as the world and the collective are going through cycles of descent and ascent as well, until all and everything is spiritualized, and it is a long process. As it is written, many are called, yet few choose to answer the call. But the choosing needs to come from the immortal soul being. It's not the ego personality that chooses. In fact, the wounded ego will resist and deny the call, giving you all kinds of excuses and justifications for why you can't do it, for it is terrified of the descent. But without descent, no ascent. In our Cosmic Matrix episode, The Ascent and Descent, Suffering as a Catalyst for Awakening, Laura and I talk more in depth about this law of ascent and descent and how to use conscious suffering as a catalyst for awakening. You can find it on my website, veilofreality.com, or any podcast streaming platforms.